Chaps, welcome back to SG MMA. In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 brilliant Fight Night main events that can be made right now, or with a couple of stipulations, which we'll get to later in the video. You know I love matchmaking, so let's talk about some main events. Let's go. And as you can see on your screen, we're going to start with Prochazka against Nikita Krylov at light heavyweight. Now, there are so many good European athletes in the organisation at the moment, and we've only been to the UK and France, anywhere across Europe, for a long period of time now. And at light heavyweight in particular, there are so many decent names right at the top of the division who have European heritage. These two are two of them. I always enjoy high-level fights like this. Prochazka has been a UFC champion. He's been fighting the very, very best of the division for a long period of time. And if you ask me, Nikita Krylov is one of the most evolved, improved mixed martial artists over the last few years. He was supposed to fight Azamat at UFC 310. That fight has been called off. So why not sort of April, May next year? Let's go to Poland. Let's go to Germany. Let's go to the Czech Republic. And let's have an all-European, potentially #1 contenders match at £205. Now, you could do Jan Blachowicz here. He's obviously Polish. And if you look at KSW, the interest in MMA in that part of the world is insane. But I'd prefer to see Jan Blachowicz come back against somebody lower down the weight class. He's obviously not fought for so long. You could have him in the co-main event against an Azamat or somebody like that. You could have the rematch of Mateusz Gamrot and Rafael Fiziev. You could have Rebetsky, who just beat Ulberg on the card as well. You can build a really, really good European fight night around this main event. If this fight went down, regardless of where it took place, really, I would go with Yuri to beat Krylov, because as much as I've already said, I think that we're seeing a much more evolved and calculated version of Nikita Krylov. I just think Yuri Prochazka's unorthodoxisms, if that's even a word, it's probably not, but I'm going to keep it in the video, fuck it. I think it would be very difficult for Krylov to figure those out, and I think as much as the craftiness of him on the ground may be a problem for Yuri, I don't think it gets that far. So yeah, but either way, it would be an intriguing watch and definitely a fight that Krylov deserves. And let's move on to what I think is the best fight in this entire video, and I think it's definitely plausible as well. Michael Chandler, of course, he just lost at UFC 309 for the second time to Charles Oliveira, no shame in that at all, fighting the winner of the probably upcoming matchup of Renato Moicano and Paddy Pimblett. I've already said on this channel previously that I think that Moicano, in terms of just flat out what he deserves, he should be fighting up, not down. But every kind of month, 2 months, there's like fresh evidence almost to prove that this fight will happen. And I think it's inevitable. If it happens early in 2025, then sort of late summer, early autumn of 2025, the winner could fight Michael Chandler in what would be the biggest fight of their career, regardless of who wins, whether it's Renato or Paddy. I definitely lean towards Moicano, simply because of experience, and I believe that as much as the jiu-jitsu of the Liverpudlian is very, very good, the overall MMA game of Renato Moicano is far superior. If you go and look through them kind of skill for skill, tit for tat, Moicano is clearly the better MMA fighter, and I believe he would win. He'd be a favourite, at least in my eyes. If you then take Moicano into a Chandler fight, or even if Pimblett can pull it off into a Chandler fight, you've got yourself a wonderful main event that would have a lot of eyes on it. The eyeballs and the hype have been all over Paddy Pimblett since he arrived in the octagon, and to be fair to Moicano, he's definitely built much more of a standing in the sport and a fan base over recent years. So either of them, especially with a win over the other, would definitely warrant a step into Michael Chandler's bracket. Chandler is at a position in his career where we kind of know he's not going to win that belt. He was saying, beat Oliveira, beat Islam, beat Holloway, beat Conor. That would have been insane if it happened, but he fell at the first hurdle. So the idea of a nearly 40 Michael Chandler, who's as far away from the UFC title as he has been since he's been within the promotion, fighting the winner of what is going to be an incredibly high-profile matchup in his own right of Renato Moicano and Paddy Pimblett, makes a ton of sense. I genuinely believe that both Renato and Paddy would have a chance of beating Chandler as well, especially this version of Chandler, who, as much as he said he was going to be more calculated, we saw as soon as things kind of got a bit ropey against Oliveira, he went back to a wild man, which is great to watch, but not particularly great if you want to be champion. But either way, whoever comes out on top in Renato Moicano versus Paddy Pimblett, which will probably be next for both, should fight Michael Chandler in a main event. What do you reckon? Let's move on to an all-Brazilian slugfest at £170. The man on the decline and the man on the come-up. Gilbert Burns against Carlos Prates. Now, if you've seen any of my recent content, you've probably heard me talk about Carlos Prates. As a guy who came into watching, training, supporting MMA from boxing, the way that Carlos Prates is able to keep his balance and keep himself still on the outside and not putting his entire body into shots and still doing sublime damage is so impressive. He makes mean, nasty, vicious, fight-ending combinations look like he's just snapping them out to try and keep range. It doesn't look like there's much on them, but if you ask the Leech, if you ask Neil Magny, I'm pretty sure there bloody well is. And if you look at Gilbert Burns, who is one of my favourite fighters of the modern era by a mile, by the way. Love the guy. I mean, obviously a 3-fight losing streak. The one against Belal Muhammad was after he was in the contention for Fighter of the Year. He was so active at the start of 2023, but obviously had a massive injury during the fight, which really hampered him. He then went into the JDM fight, where he looked kind of okay early, but obviously he succumbed to the crazy power of JDM in the end, and he got dominated by Sean Brady. So he's in a position now where, not too dissimilar from like a Michael Chandler, where you're thinking, okay, he's a massive name, we could use him to build up stars, but considering he's been at the top for so long, if he fights a Carlos Prates and does a number on him, there's still time for Burns to maybe resurrect a title run. Who knows, but the fight would be mustardo, as Wayne Mardle would say. I do think Burns would really struggle with Carlos Prates now, which is why it's a bit of a shame I've given him this fight, because I don't think there are many welterweights who would choose exclusively to stand with the guy. And like I said, because his balance is so good, or because of the effortless way he throws his boxing combinations, I think Burns will have issues getting his entries right, and I think Prates would probably chin him, which would be a shame, but I'd love to see the fight. You could do that in the Apex, you could even do that to headline a fight night in Brazil. I think that would be fine. We shall move on to a geezer that I just mentioned, Mr. Sean Brady, who I think should fight Leon Edwards next. I'll tell you why. If you look at the welterweights, there's obviously Shavkat Rakhmonov, who was supposed to fight Belal Muhammad, but is now fighting Ian Gary for a title shot. I've already given the likes of Carlos Prates further down the division. Gilbert Burns, it looks like JDM Usman's going to happen. That kind of leaves Edwards and Brady, right? Because, you know, I don't think Wonderboy Thompson's in a position to fight up. He may not even fight again, to be honest. And then you've got Joaquin Buckley, Colby Covington, which is a brilliant fight on short notice, which I'm very much looking forward to. So yeah, it definitely leaves the former champion Leon Edwards and the rising contender Sean Brady. Now, where would it happen? You see, I've said that I think Renato Moicano and Paddy Pimblett will fight soon. I assume that will be the London main event, which leaves Edwards Brady probably in the Apex. Obviously, Leon Edwards was riding the crest of a wave before he lost against Belal Muhammad, and Sean Brady's only loss in the UFC was also to Belal Muhammad. It was a TKO loss. He lost a striking match against Belal, which wasn't a very good look. I had worries about him, but he's bounced back well. The reason why I think this makes a lot of sense, especially as an Apex fight night, is as much as Leon Edwards had that superb moment with the head kick against Usman, if you look at these two chaps fight, 90% of the time you're not going to get a slugfest. Leon is an incredibly good technical kickboxer, great Muay Thai, really good offensive and defensive grappling. And Sean Brady is a pressure grappler. We saw what he did against Gilbert Burns. That's his MO. These two are not going to light a crowd on fire, if you know what I mean. One of the most important things about this fight is if you look at the three heavy wrestlers that Leon Edwards has fought recently in Usman, Colby Covington and the new champion Belal Muhammad, they all grapple in slightly different ways. Obviously, Colby is chain grappler, all gas, no brakes. Usman is a power takedown kind of guy. He may only get you down once in a round, but he'll control you for as much of it as he possibly can. He's very good at holding people down, and Belal is kind of a cross-section of them both. I think he uses chain grappling more than Usman, but he holds people down for longer usually than Colby. I would say that Sean Brady is kind of similar to Belal in that he has the ability to both chain takedowns for 25 minutes, and he can get some good top control time as well, which might be a problem for Leon. We saw how Belal basically dominated him over 5 rounds. Even with that said, beautiful people, I would still lean towards Leon Edwards. I mean, you could call it maybe a slight bit of British bias, who knows, but I think if you can have a fight with Belal Muhammad that is basically all on the feet and get TKO'd, considering the fact that Leon does have good defensive grappling usually, I think he'd be able to do enough to keep it standing for long enough to kind of pick Sean apart. But I'd still like to see it though. If Sean can beat Leon, he's in the title picture. If Leon can beat Sean, he holds his ranking. He stays right at the very top. So yeah, let's see it, man. And in the final fight that I've put together for today's upload, I'm going to say that Khalil Rountree should fight the winner of Carlos Ulberg against Volkan Oezdemir. You know, both of these guys, in a similar way to what I was saying about Nikita Krylov earlier, have been on pretty good resurrections, I guess. I suppose you wouldn't really call Ulberg's a resurrection. He had a bit of a rocky start in the UFC, but he's been perfect since. Ozdemir is a resurrection. Obviously a former UFC light heavyweight title challenger. He lost that one, and then the next two after that. Ankalaev's beat him, Yuri Prochazka's beat him relatively recently as well. But over the last kind of 12-18 months, he's looked really good. He chinned Johnny Walker, but most people do. And the Guskov win, that's going to age really well, I think. Volkan Ozdemir and Carlos Ulberg are in very similar spots in the division. The winner will be number 7, number 8 in the world. And for Khalil Rountree, it's very important his next fight is correct. Nobody has had more success at light heavyweight against Powhatan than Mr. Rountree. So, as much as I can understand why some people are saying, oh, just rebook the Jamal Hill fight or have him fight Yuri Prochazka, I get it. You know, like relatively, if you think logically, he did a lot better against Alex than some of those other guys. So he should be higher ranked or fighting higher guys. I get it, but the rankings are there for a reason. So he's number 6. The winner of this fight will be number 7, number 8. And the winner of that fight can look at a title eliminator kind of situation, if you know what I mean. I mean, personally, people, I am going to be backing Carlos Ulberg to beat Volkan Ozdemir at UFC Macau this Saturday night because he's just a quicker guy. He's more fast twitch, he's fresher. I think he's got more chance of landing a big shot quicker than Ozdemir. I think Ozdemir may get caught coming in with something and get finished quite early. So that's my prediction for that fight. So basically I'm saying that early next year, main event, Rountree Ulberg. That's what I'm saying. Right, lads and lasses, that will do us for today's video. A little bit shorter than usual. I thought I'd sort of, you know, condense it a little bit for you lovely people today. I hope you enjoyed my sort of thoughts on some good main events. I think all of these would be brilliant matchups. Let me know what you think down below. Stay tuned for the next video coming very soon, and take care.